Good evening. Thank you for joining us for Bible study. It is Tuesday night. So actually we're going to continue on. I wanted to expound a little bit more on what Jordan and I were talking about on Sabbath when we were talking about new beginnings and restoration and everything. And there was one of the points that was in the whole thing of what we were talking about with restoration was transformation. And so I just wanted to expound on that a little bit more about transformation and actually about how it is for us to be transformed. So if we look at 2 Corinthians in chapter 5, verse 17, it says, "Therefore, if any person is engrafted in Yeshua the Messiah, he is a new creation, a new creature altogether. The old, previous moral and spiritual condition has passed away. Behold, the fresh and new has come." In the voice it says, "Therefore, if anyone is united with the Anointed One, that person is a new creation. The old life is gone, and see, a new life has begun." The Message says, because of this decision, we don't evaluate people by what they have or how they look. We looked at the Messiah that way once and got it all wrong, as you know. We certainly don't look at him that way anymore. Now we look inside, and what we see is that anyone united with the Messiah gets a fresh start, is created new. The old life is gone, a new life emerges. So, and to be transformed, it's talking about inside. It's talking about inward. And we know that when we change our inward, it affects our outward. So with this whole power of restoration and the aspect of transformation being in it, what we just read in 2 Corinthians 5:17, the Apostle Paul reminds us that anyone who is in Yeshua is a new creation. Through Yeshua, we are given the opportunity to experience a complete transformation. What was one way, one moment, can be completely transformed the next. You know, I heard George Pearson's talking about something one time, and he was talking about, I don't know if it was one of his grandchildren or something like that, but he was talking about healing. And he had made this comment, and I instantly took it in, and I was like, I'm going to add in that as part of my declarations for my daughter. But he was saying that you may go to bed one way, but when you wake up in the morning, you'll be a completely different way. So I take it as you'll go to bed one way tonight, but you'll wake up in the morning completely restored, completely healed, completely transformed. Because that's what Yahweh's Word does. Yahweh's Word can transform like that. So we are given the opportunity to experience a complete transformation. This power of restoration not only impacts our individual lives, but also extends to our relationships, communities, and the world around us. And we need to know how to take this and allow it to bring about lasting change in our lives. Now, like I just read right there, you know, transformation for ourselves, it's not just about ourselves. You know, I just read that it extends. It carries on into our relationships. It carries on into our communities. It carries on into the world around us. When we become transformed people, we can impact people out there in a different way than as before. So, new creation. Some of the translations say new creature, but I was looking at the aspect of it saying new creation. One of the definitions of creation is the action or process of bringing something into existence. Another one is the action or process of investing someone with a new rank or title. So let's look at Ephesians chapter 2 real quick. And I want to focus on that for a second. The action or process of investing someone with a new rank or title. When we became born again, when we became new creations, we were given a new rank. We were given a new title. So in Ephesians 2:10, in the Amplified, it says, "For we are Yahweh's own handiwork, his workmanship, recreated in Yeshua the Messiah, born anew, that we may do those good works which Yahweh predestined, planned beforehand for us, taking paths which he prepared ahead of time, that we should walk in them, living the good life which he prearranged and made ready for us to live. Living the good life that he already prearranged for us. That's what transformation is about. When we allow Yahweh's word to transform us from the inside out, to change certain things from the inside out, that's what this scripture is referring to. It's then we are able to walk living the good life which he prearranged and made ready for us to live. So back to that thing for a second with, the process of investing someone with a new rank or title. We were all given this new rank. Mom talks about how we're living billboards actively reflecting Yeshua. We're high-ranking officials on assignment. That's what happened when we became born again. When we're following Yeshua, we're high-ranking officials on assignment. We're ambassadors on assignment. I remember when I was working for the bank and they had changed my assignment a little bit, and I was traveling around to different branches. And that high-ranking official thing, I remember Mom saying, when you're driving to whatever branch you're heading to that day, you're doing your declarations or whatever, you decree and declare that you're a high-ranking official walking into that place. And that all will know that someone just walked in. And that I'm a high-ranking official on assignment to do something that Yahweh has called me to do. Well, I couldn't do that unless I'd been transformed. I couldn't do that unless I've been made a new creation. So the voice for Ephesians 2:10 says, "For we are the product of his hand, heaven's poetry etched on lives, created in the anointed, Yeshua, to accomplish the good works Yahweh arranged long ago." I like that. Heaven's poetry etched on lives. That's what it is. Think about poetry. Well, think about some poetry, okay? You got to be careful about some poetry you think about. But, heaven's poetry etched on lives. That's what transformation is about. So what does it mean to be transformed? Well, transformed means to make a thorough or dramatic change in the form, appearance, or character of. It also means to change completely the appearance or character of something or someone, especially so that thing or person is improved. Transformation. You change. Now, we're not so much talking about appearances, although for some people it's a benefit to transform their appearances for the better, okay? But we're talking more about character. So it's a transformation of a character so that that person is improved, so that they're better than they were before. Example of it is, actually I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here, but example of that would be, take the account of the woman with the issue of blood. I know we were just recently talking about her, but that's an individual who underwent a transformation, okay? A serious transformation. You think about having, 12 years, having this affliction, this issue of blood, going through all these doctors, and not one, she could not find one physician that could help her, that could heal her. Went through all her money. Now we know also back in those days that, with the issue of blood, you were considered unclean. So she couldn't even be around, she wasn't supposed to be around people. And we've talked about this before. She probably lost family, relationships, probably a job. I'm sure up until the point before she got this issue of blood, I'm sure she possibly had a job or something, or whatever her status was in society. She was doing something, and has this issue of blood. And what happens? The devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And he was coming to steal, kill, and destroy her life. And so she not only is her health affected, her finances are affected, her relationships are affected, her status in society is affected, but even it goes more so. Those are, so to speak, outward things. But what were the inward things inside of her that were affected? Her joy, her shalom, her thoughts about herself, But there came a day when she touched the tzitzits of Yeshua and she got transformed. She got transformed from the inside out. And she experienced a transformation unlike anything else, where she went from one moment being one way to the very next moment being completely changed, completely transformed, better than before, like it never even happened. And and we talk about this all the time with the woman with the issue of blood, but it wasn't just her body that was transformed. Okay, her finances were transformed, her relationships were transformed, her status in society was transformed. But I think the most important thing that was transformed was inside of her. It was inward. It was a transformation inward that changed things for her. Because now she was what was to people a nothing, and then all of a sudden now she's a something. She went from a nobody to a somebody. That's a transformation. A transformation going from being nothing, being nobody, to being something, being somebody. And so she's a very good example of transformation. So what does it mean to be transformed? Like I said, to change completely the appearance or character of something or someone, especially so that thing or person is improved. Well, for years now, we've heard Mom talk about, is it behavior modification or is it heart transformation? And in this time that we're coming into, we're 2 nights away from Hanukkah, and we've been talking about the different things of Hanukkah, about how it's the season of miracles and the season of light, the season of new beginnings, the season of restoration. It's the season of transformation. And we're walking, in a couple days, we're walking into this season of transformation where we have yet another opportunity to be transformed from the inside out. That's what matters. The word changes from the inside out. This is what causes the transformation. Being transformed from the inside out. And like I said, we have this opportunity coming into Hanukkah. This to us should be it should be a Hanukkah like we've never had before. And we should have a determination that we're going to milk it, so to speak, for everything that it's got. And I'm sure there's quite a few of us who we still need some transforming on the things inside of us. Whether it's negative thoughts about ourselves, whether it's anger that we deal with, whether it's whatever is going on in the inside of us, we have the opportunity. Now, the opportunity is always given to us, but like Mom was saying on Sabbath, each feast, each thing has a different anointing to it, a more enhanced, higher anointing. We have this opportunity that whatever we need to have transformed from the inside out, we have this opportunity to have it take place. And when it's transformation, like I was saying, there's behavior modification and heart transformation. When it's actual transformation, it's what lasts, And there's many people out there that need some transformation, that need some inward transformation. You've got so many people that are hurt, that are lost, that are having things going on. But you just look in general, so many people that have negative thoughts about themselves, I can't stand myself, I hate myself, or whatever type of thing. They need an instant transformation to take place. And the only one that can do that is Him and His Word. So with behavior modification, Mom has always said, is it behavior modification or is it heart transformation? Behavior modification, it only lasts for a certain amount of time. Behavior modification is the process of changing our behavior. It's a process of changing patterns of our behavior. Well, I've always done it that way. I've always behaved that way. Yeah, well, you know what? Maybe it's time to change the way you behave and things will, and there's always that key. It's like, well, I've always done it this way, but why is it not working? Or why do you keep going back to the old thing? Behavior modification, now I'm not saying that it's not right to change our behavior. Obviously, if there's certain behaviors that we have that need changing, we need to change them. But in order to make them lasting, you've got to be able to get from behavior modification over to heart transformation. And with behavior modification, you're trying to change the way you act or react. And it can only last for so long sometimes, especially when you're trying to do it within yourself. A good example, now I don't do this personally, but through the years and stuff, I had a lot of friends that always did this every year with New Year's Eve. People make New Year's Eve resolutions, okay? That's behavior modification. And I remember one particular friend of mine, and it was every single year, all through high school and college, it was the same resolution. Every single year. It was like, didn't you make that resolution last year? Oh yeah, well, here we are again, a year later, making the same resolution. And people start out, they're all gung-ho come January 1st. Okay, here's my New Year's resolution. I'm gonna be a happier person. I'm gonna be a nicer person. I'm gonna stop eating sugar. I'm gonna lose weight. I'm gonna exercise more. And everybody's all gung-ho, and I'm gonna change this behavior, blah, blah, blah. And they get into week 1, and yeah, they're going at it. And they get into week 2, and yeah, they're going at it. And a lot of people don't even make it to the end of January, okay? And it's like, what happened to your New Year's resolution, okay? I used to say that to my friend all the time. We'd be in the 3rd week of January. I was like, wait a minute, wasn't that a New Year's resolution that you made? Why are you doing it, okay? And it's like, it's because it's trying to modify behavior with no heart behind it. But when you get the heart behind it, when you get the heart of a matter, and you get the heart behind a thing, that's when true transformation takes place. That's when true behavior change becomes permanent. So heart transformation, like I was saying, heart transformation is so much different than behavior modification. A change in behavior is not our ultimate goal. Now, like I said, we need to work on changing certain behaviors, but that's not our ultimate goal. A change of heart is where we ought to be focused. Yeshua talked about in Matthew 5 when he was talking about murder and adultery. But in doing so, he says, it is not just the outward act that makes us guilty. It's what's in the heart. It's what's in the inside. That's what makes you guilty. When we hate our brother in our heart, we are also guilty. So we may not outwardly walk up to somebody, oh, by the way, I just wanted you to know I hate you, okay? Or, whatever. Or act, go up and treat somebody like you can't stand them at all right? It's what's in the heart. It's what's in the heart. And we're human. There's people that can't stand somebody, and they go up to them, and they're being nice, and they're friendly, and acting like they're best friends, but the whole time their inside is like, I do not like this person at all, okay? That's a heart issue, all right? But when he says, when you hate your brother in your heart, you're also guilty. He makes the focus inward. And that's what we have to look at. We have to look at inward. It's not about outward. It's about inward. I saw this story, this testimony, I think it was one night last week. I was reading some stuff and it came up. And it was an example of this couple who had gotten married, and they were both in the service. And they were as opposite could be. But it was a true story of how outward appearances doesn't matter. It's what's in the heart. And in the natural, if I'd shown a picture of them, the woman and the guy, the woman, she was a big lady. She was a very big lady. She was tall. She was very overweight. All natural appearances, she wasn't really the nicest thing to look at. And then here was this guy who was super skinny, short. When she hugged him, he disappeared. And it was like, wow, okay. And I'm looking at this, but I was reading their story. And despite all odds, now you got to imagine, he had friends, she had friends, but all of his friends and his family was like, what are you thinking? What are you doing with this girl? I mean, look at her, and blah, blah, blah. And he never once took in consideration anything that was being said by his friends or family. In fact, some of his friends disowned him and were like, you get together with this girl? We're not even having anything to do with you anymore. And this really, I have to say, to me was such a powerful story of looking at the heart and looking how a person really is on the inside, and not by going through outward appearance. So much in our world now, it's all about outward appearance. You know, Hollywood dresses up, you know, men and women, and that's what everybody, you know, you go for the looks, you go for the looks. You know, a lot of times you could have the most nicest looking guy, but what is the inside is totally opposite of what you want. But in this story of this girl and this guy, and they were together for a couple years, and then they decided they were going to get married, and they announced their engagement and stuff. And on both sides, because on her side they had things to say about him, because in the natural neither one of them were. I mean, they weren't, what do you call it, GQ or whatever, what type of thing? Okay, they weren't, but not everybody in the world is. Okay. But they were a little more exceptionally on the other end of not being GQ type of thing. But on both sides, when they announced their engagement, they had friends and family. Now that's the part that really got me. I can understand friends. Friends come and go, okay? You think somebody's a friend and you find out after a long period of time of having this relationship with them, they weren't really a true friend. You know, friends come and go. I guess family comes and goes too now that I think about it, so I can't even use that as an example. But, you know, I'm a little more surprising that family disowned both of them, all because of how they looked, all because of an outward appearance. And to make a long story short, because this was a long story, it went through like before they got married and their engagement and when they got married, and then a few years afterwards when they had children. And it was such an amazing story, and it just goes to show, you know, it was mostly focused on her than it was on him, but it was so good in how it talked about, you know, it doesn't matter what somebody looks like, it matters what their heart is. It matters how they are as a person, what their character is. And I was reading some things about her, and it was like, wow, she was an amazing, amazing young lady. I mean, compassionate, friendly, sensitive. I don't recall what the man's name was, but he was her all in all. I mean, she treated him like gold, and vice versa. So despite all the negative comments, all the gesturing, all the family and friends being like, we're not going to have anything to do with you guys, they prevailed over that. And lo and behold, and like I said, it was a story of transformation, because even as time goes on, people's looks can change, okay? And a lot of times as time goes on, people's look can change for the better. So this guy found out about their story and everything and decided he was going to try to find them. They had made like headlines for quite some time because of the whole dynamics of what was going on and stuff, and then they kind of disappeared and fell off the radar. So this guy was determined, I'm going to find them because they were such a story of transformation, and I want to see what their lives are like now, what they're doing now. And he said he tracked them down, and they live in Texas, and he walked up to the front door and he knocked on the door, and this woman answered the door and thought it was like a maid or something, and asked for so-and-so, and she was like, that's me. She was totally transformed. Not only was she already, you know, as a person herself was just a great individual, her outward appearance had totally transformed. She had lost, now that, like I said, this was a big girl. She was a big girl. She had lost all that weight. She had done other things and stuff, had started working out and exercising, blah, blah, and she was a transformed individual. I mean, she was a pretty girl. She was a pretty girl. And then him, he transformed some, but not, you know, not as much as she had. But this reporter, I guess he was a journalist or whatever, was so taken back by how this couple prevailed through so much, especially at the hands of friends and family. For a lot of people, that's really hard to endure. That's really hard when you have family coming at you. And a lot of times people go with that. They go with the family, because they don't want to lose them or whatever, right? But they made a decision to fight and stick it out. And their transformation story was just absolutely amazing. And now they're both successful. They're not in the military anymore. They started, I believe they started some business together, and they have a very successful business. They have 2 little children, and they're the most happy, joy-filled people that this journalist guy is saying he's ever met. And he was so impacted by, especially her. She had much reason. I mean, she really did. She had much reason to be just like, I'm done with life, if you know what I mean. She really did, because she talked about different things that had been said to her through the years, things that people did to her and everything. And it was like, but despite all that, she didn't focus on that. She didn't look on that. She prevailed and she fought, and she was blessed enough that she had this individual who didn't care about looks, okay, who saw what was in her heart and knew, wait a minute, I've got a diamond right here. It didn't matter what she looked like, but she was still a diamond because of the type of person she was. So I just wanted to share that because it was such an interesting story of transformation, and how their transformation wasn't just for them, but it impacted this journalist, but then obviously it impacted people who read their story, and it was just an interesting thing. But anyways, so Yeshua makes the focus inward. Proverbs 4:23 says, "Guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life." The heart is the core of who we are. See, like with that girl, he knew that her heart was the core of who she was. Our heart is not just our emotions, it is where we keep things. Well, think about it. Really, where you keep things, it's in your heart. Mary pondered those things in her heart, okay? She pondered those things in her heart. It is where we keep things. In Matthew 6:21, Yeshua says, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." The only way to experience true and lasting change is through the heart. When our heart is right, when our thinking in our heart is right, our actions will follow. Behavior is important. I said that at the beginning. Behavior is important. But behavior is just a symptom of a deeper issue going on in the heart. And that's what we got to look at. We got to look at the heart. One thing for things to be in the mind, we talk about, if the devil is bombarding you with a thought in your mind, and you don't take it captive, and you allow that thought to drop into your heart, it's a whole different ball game. You're fighting a whole different battle now once it gets in your heart. Because when things are in your heart, negative things, when they're in your heart, it's a lot harder to fight them out of it. It's a lot harder to transform your thinking from things that you've lodged in your heart. And that's why we've got to realize it's about the heart. And that's where true transformation begins to take place. So let's look at Acts chapter 8. And this is another story, an account of an individual who really had also true transformation, but it is in a different way than with the woman with the issue of blood. And this is the story of Saul, Paul. We're going to kind of jump around a little bit here. But starting in Acts 8, just to paint a picture of Saul, in the previous chapter it talks about how they were stoning Stephen and all that stuff. So in chapter 8, verse 1, it says, "And Saul was not only consenting to Stephen's death, he was pleased and entirely approving. On that day, a great and severe persecution broke out against the church, which was in Jerusalem. And they were all scattered throughout the regions of Judea and Samaria, except the apostles. A party of devout men with others helped to carry out and bury Stephen and made great lamentation over him. But Saul shamefully treated and laid waste the church continuously with cruelty and violence. And entering house after house, he dragged out men and women and committed them to prison." All right, so here's the beginning where we're learning about how Saul was. So now if we go to chapter 9. And it says, meanwhile Saul, verse 1, meanwhile Saul, still drawing his breath hard from threatening and murderous desire against the disciples of the Lord, went to the high priest and requested of him letters to the synagogues at Damascus, authorizing him, so that if he found any men or women belonging to the way of life as determined by faith in Yeshua the Anointed One, he might bring them bound with chains to Jerusalem. Now as he traveled on, he came near to Damascus, and suddenly a light from heaven flashed around him, and he fell to the ground. Then he heard a voice saying to him, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me, harassing, trouble, and molesting me? And Saul said, who are you, Lord? Now, interesting. He says, who are you, Lord? Okay, he knew who it was. And he said, I am Yeshua, whom you are persecuting. It is dangerous and will turn out badly for you to keep kicking against the goad, to offer vain and perilous resistance. Trembling and astonished, he asked the Lord, what do you desire me to do? The Lord said to him, but arise and go into the city, and you'll be told what you must do. The men who were accompanying him were unable to speak for terror, hearing the voice but seeing no one. Then Saul got up from the ground, but though his eyes were opened, he could see nothing. So they led him by the hand and brought him into Damascus. And he was unable to see for 3 days, and he neither ate nor drank anything. Now there was in Damascus a disciple named Ananias. The Lord said to him in a vision, Ananias, and he answered, Here am I, Lord. And the Lord said to him, Get up and go to the street called Straight, and ask at the house of Judas for a man of Tarsus named Saul, for behold, he is praying there. And he has seen in a vision a man named Ananias enter and lay his hands on him so that he might regain his sight. But Ananias answered, Lord, I have heard many people tell about this man, especially how much evil and what great suffering he has brought on your saints in Jerusalem. Now, a pretty good picture has been painted of who Saul was. Okay, he was an evil person, a bad guy, okay, a very bad guy. Now it says, in verse 14, now he is here and has authority from the high priest to put in chains all who call upon your name. But the Lord said to him, Go, for this man is a chosen instrument of mine, to bear my name before the Gentiles and kings and descendants of Israel. For I will make clear to him how much he will be afflicted and must endure and suffer for my name's sake. So Ananias left and went into the house, and he laid his hands on Saul and said, Brother Saul, the Lord Yeshua appeared to you along the way by which you came here, has sent me that you may recover your sight and be filled with the Holy Spirit. And instantly something like scales fell from Saul's eyes, and he recovered his sight. Then he arose and was baptized. And after he took some food, he was strengthened. For several days afterward, he remained with the disciples at Damascus. And immediately in the synagogue he proclaimed Yeshua, saying, He is the Son of God. And all who heard him were amazed and said, Is not this the very man who harassed and overthrew and destroyed in Jerusalem those who called upon his name? And he has come here for the express purpose of arresting them and bringing them in chains before the chief priests. But Saul increased all the more in strength and continued to confound and put to confusion the Jews who lived in Damascus by comparing and examining evidence and proving that Yeshua is the Messiah. After considerable time had elapsed, the Jews conspired to put Saul out of the way by slaying him. Now look how things have changed, okay? Look how the picture has completely changed. But his disciples took him at night and let him down through the city's wall, lowering him in a basket or hamper. And when he had arrived in Jerusalem, he tried to associate himself with the disciples, but they were all afraid of him, for they did not believe he really was a disciple. However, Barnabas took him and brought him to the apostles, and he explained to them how along the way he had seen the Lord, who spoke to him, and how at Damascus he had preached freely and confidently and courageously in the name of Yeshua. So he went in and out as one among them at Jerusalem, preaching freely and confidently and boldly in the name of the Lord, and he spoke and discussed with and disputed against the Hellenists, but they were seeking to slay him. So here's an example. I would say that this is quite the example of transformation. Now, it took the Lord himself to show himself strong to Saul on that day. But what a transformation that took place. Going from an individual, we just read in chapter 8 that he was pleased and entirely approving of Stephen being stoned. How he was, dragging the men and women out of their houses and doing all this types of stuff. All this stuff that we know about Saul beforehand. And now look what happened after one encounter with Yeshua. One encounter totally transformed him from the inside out. To have that type of individual, you have to have been transformed from the inside out. Okay? To go from such hate and whatever one moment to completely opposite the next. Completely opposite. Just by one encounter. And all it takes, I think it was the Copelands who came out with all those books, one word from Yahweh. Okay, one word from God can change your life. One word from God can change your finances. One word from God can change your family. They came out with this whole series of books. One encounter with Yeshua. One encounter with this word, one morning while you're sitting there reading it, all it takes is one encounter with this word to all of a sudden impact you and transform your heart. Heart transformation. Something where we've been struggling for so long to try to change behavior-wise, and it's like, why do I keep going back and doing the same thing over and over and over? Because it's not heart transformation. This is what's going to cause the heart transformation. Just like with Saul, who now we know was called Paul, and we read on in Acts the things that he did, he had a heart transformation just by one encounter. That's all it takes. One encounter, one word, and complete transformation can take place. So I wanted to read one last thing to you before I close. And I just happened to come across this a little while ago. And it says, what it means to be transformed from the inside out. And this was actually written by a missionary person. And it says, over the years we have worked in countries around the world, providing scriptures and teaching people how to lead a Yeshua-filled life. Governments have welcomed us, communities have started churches, and those considered to be outcasts have found their value in Yahweh's word. How many times do you hear stuff like that? Those that were considered to be outcasts. Like the woman with the issue of blood. She was considered to be an outcast, but she was transformed. How many people have we heard that they're referred to as outcasts, but they've found value in Yahweh's word. They found transformation in his word. We have seen individuals, families, and communities be transformed by having access to the Bible. But what does transformation really mean? The Bible is filled with stories of transformation, from David, who found courage and strength to fight Goliath and later become king, to a man who changed his ways after Yeshua met with him, to Jonah, who found courage after Yahweh intervened through the use of a large fish. These are just a few accounts of people in the Bible who were transformed by Yahweh. These people did not change in just one area of their life, however. They were transformed entirely because Yahweh's word and goodness changed their innermost being. That's what we've been talking about, being changed from the inside out. They were able to find peace, courage, strength, and forgiveness, forever setting them on a path that Yahweh planned for them, and that was better than anything they could ever imagine. Okay? The God who restores to better than before. Okay? Way better than before. Though being transformed on the inside, their lives were transformed on the outside. And that's how it goes. When there's the inward transformation, then there's the outward transformation. Inward affects the outward. We do not have to only look at the Bible to see acts of transformation. They are all around us. When we accept Yahweh into our hearts, we are forever changed. And he quotes the same scripture. 2 Corinthians 5:17 says, therefore, if anyone is in Yeshua, the new creation has come, the old has gone, the new is here. When we accept Yeshua into our lives, he works through all of the hurt, fear, anger, and past experiences that affect our daily life. He brings us healing so that we may walk forward and find joy in what Yahweh has planned for us. From the inside, we are transformed. Instead of living in sin and shame, we can live as a light of Yeshua. So what's the time that we're coming into? The season of lights. Okay, Hanukkah, the lights that we're supposed to be. We're only able to be that way by being transformed by Yeshua. Yahweh's words changes lives from the inside out, and we can see this every day. Psalms 138:3 says, "On the day I called, you answered me. You made me bold with strength in my soul." So when you're seeking out to have something transformed in your life, it says right there, "On the day I called, you answered me." So whatever it is that you need, it's like, you know what, Yahweh, I've had enough. I've had enough of going around the same tree with this thing over and over again. I've tried to change it. I've tried to change it. My behavior gets better for a few weeks and then boom, I'm right back. But I know on the day I call to you, you answer me. And when you get real with yourself and honest with yourself and you allow this word to penetrate your heart, then heart transformation will take place. And all the stuff that the devil may have been trying to throw at you, get you to continue to try to do, it will be transformed and it will never be that way again. Heart transformation is permanent. Behavior modification is temporary. But heart transformation is permanent. And it's never looking back, never going back to those old ways. Continuing walking forward as the new creation that Yeshua has made us. So, that's the final thing I wanted to say is that, we were talking about Luke 1:31 on Sabbath and about how, the angel said to Mary, you are going to become pregnant with this child. And that whole account with Mary, it reminds us of the new beginning that Yahweh brought into the world through the birth of Yeshua. Now we're coming into Hanukkah when he was conceived. And it reminds us, this is the time. This is the time of new beginnings. This is the time of changing what is old and getting rid of it and starting anew. It is the time of complete transformation. Just as Mary received the promise of restoration and a new life, we too can experience that same hope and transformation in our lives. Yahweh's desire is to restore us, heal us, and grant us new beginnings. And we have to hold on to that truth and trust in his faithfulness as we journey through this life. And it is a journey that we're on. And it's been quite a journey that we've been on, okay? But it's a journey now that we're coming into Hanukkah. It's a journey of transformation, a permanent transformation where, like that thing I said from George Pearson's where he's, may go to bed one way but wake up completely different. We may walk into Hanukkah one way, but we're going to walk out of it completely different. Transformed people, completely free, no hindrances, no boundaries, no borders, in the right way. Now, obviously, we have to have some boundaries and borders, but I'm saying that, that the things that the devil has held us captive with, all of that gone, completely transformed, walking as the light that Yeshua has called us and made us to be. Amen. Well, I hope you gained something out of this tonight. Thank you for joining us on Facebook, and we will see you here again on Saturday at 11 a.m. Have a blessed night.